Okay. Hello, everybody. We are live in London. This is Coffee Chat live for the first time. Just better just tune up. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be ranting and raving. We're going to be probably more ranting than raving, though. We're going to be talking about some cool guitar players, such as we're going to talk about some maybe guitar players that not so well known as sort of Slash and all those kind of guys. So yeah, let's speak about some players that you wouldn't probably ordinarily think of as guitar players. Maybe that could be today's sort of topic. Okay. So let me just do this. Now, hopefully you can all hear me. I don't know if I've got to do this somehow. Turn this up. Let's try that. Okay, so let's put it there. Okay, sorry about the start. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about like players like Lou Reed. I don't know if you guys know about sort of obviously Lou Reed and you know his music, but maybe you didn't know that he was quite sort of into guitar equipment. And there's somebody that kind of really interested me a lot was Lou Reed. He was an amazing songwriter, and he was really, really great songwriter, and he also had some really brilliant sort of guitar pieces. With the Velvet Underground, he did a lot of sort of psychedelic sort of sounds using feedback and distortion, and he became quite adept at it, so that was something that was really, really interesting. I'm going to move this camera down so you can see some good stars. Hopefully the camera won't fall down. We've got to improve this technology because it's not so good. So anyway, so somebody like Lou Reed is really intrigues me because he's not sort of your sort of average guy who's playing blues licks. In actual fact, in the Velvet Underground there was a rule, no blues licks. So imagine if you join a band and on guitar the first thing you want to do is that's the first thing you want to do. And obviously in the Velvet Underground it was no blues licks. It was just kind of I guess chords and strange noises and things like that. So that was kind of a really intriguing sort of thing for me. And it's just kind of like those sort of weird sort of sounds. And another thing is he was just really great at just playing a chord like a D chord, and he really used the vibrato. And just again another really great sort of somebody like J.J. Cale, real minimalist, getting that kind of so he's somebody that I really, really sort of admire for his sort of tones and his sounds. Is the great Lou Reed. He's a sort of great player. So somebody to definitely check out, and especially like his more sort of earlier Velvet Underground thing. He had a BA in English literature, I think. So he was a really well read guy, and obviously he's a wordsmith, and his lyrics were kind of a focal point of his later career. But he did actually go to Pete Cornish, and because he was obsessed about getting rid of noise in his rig. So we're talking about Lou Reed, and he's kind of like, he's almost like when I first sort of got into Lou Reed, he wasn't, he was a guitar player, but he wasn't a guitarist, like in the sense of Slash and Eddie Van Halen. But I just kind of loved his sounds. There's a great album called New York, which I really recommend you check out. And it's sort of in his the New York album was sort of his later career, but a real landmark album in terms of guitar tones. And again, this guy is quite a simple player, but there's some beautiful sounds and delays and so forth. And he went to Pete Cornish, and he said, you know, I'm getting some hiss and all this kind of stuff. So Pete Cornish said, you know, we're gonna sort you out a rig, a whole rig. You know, they just built basically this Soldano rig for Eric Clapton, because Eric Clapton, when he was wearing the Armani suits, and it was probably kind of the pinnacle of the fashion designer Ferrari driving Eric Clapton, you know, where he really went for it, you know. So everything had to be super, you know, the best of the best, you know, and you know, Soldano was kind of considered like the top amp at that time. You know, even Steve Ray Vaughan had a Soldano built for him, which he never received. But so anyway, Pete Cornish said, look, we're gonna build you the same rig basically that they built for Eric Clapton. So Lou Reed actually had the same, you know, I think it was two Soldanos and this huge pedal board and this massive rack system. Pretty much the same thing that Eric Clapton had. And so it's kind of funny, this guy that you kind of assumed was a kind of anti-guitar hero had the same guitar rig as Eric Clapton, you know, same amps, you know. So it's kind of funny. And what Pete Cornish did for him was get rid of all the hiss, and he came up with this saying called "free the tone," because they want to free the tone of the noise and the hiss without using noise suppressors and you know, these kind of pedals, like I think it's Rocktron make a pedal that kind of cuts your you know, your hiss. Hi Johnny. Johnny, can I ask you a question? Can you hear me okay? Great to hear from you. So we're just talking about Lou Reed, and we're speaking about how he got hooked up with Pete Cornish, and Pete Cornish built him this crazy rig. And yeah, and Pete Cornish came up with this kind of saying, this catchphrase, which was "free the tone." Free the tone of any kind of noises and hiss and stuff like that, you know. So, and actually, Free the Tone became a company in Japan, run by a guy called Yuki, and I'm a big fan of his pedals. So that's where and Yuki actually worked for Pete Cornish. I think he came to England. I think Yuki actually came to England and worked for Pete Cornish. And you know, Yuki was a young sort of sound engineer, and he was making pedals, you know. And Lou Reed was a really big fan of Pete Cornish's pedals, and I think there was one pedal that he made that he kind of wrote a whole album on this one Pete Cornish pedal, you know, which was a pretty mad pedal apparently. Anyway, so we're digressing, but that's how Free the Tone got their name, was because Yuki was working for Pete Cornish, and Pete Cornish had this catchphrase, which was to free the tone of noise and hiss and buzz, you know. So yeah, we're talking about Lou Reed and the anti-guitar heroes. If you guys can name any. Dwight, happy Thanksgiving to you also. Great to hear from you. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to play a little bit more, because also it's Jimi Hendrix's birthday, and I don't know how old he would have been, so maybe somebody can tell me how old he would have been. And thank you, Bieber Costa. I'm glad you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you so much, very kind for the compliment. You know, we got the Stratocaster. Well, Lou Reed played a Strat, and Jimi Hendrix played a Strat, and so Lou Reed. Another thing about Lou Reed is he was really into pre-CBS Strats and Fenders, and he had I think it was a Fender Deluxe right from back in the Velvet Underground days. And I think the thing about the Velvet Underground for me, the reason I loved them was because I'm a big fan of Andy Warhol. And you know, Andy Warhol used models from that time, and bands and artwork, and that whole scene in New York. For me, you had this kind of scene in the 1960s, the swinging 60s in the London, Carnaby Street, and with the fashion designers, and you had a model called Twiggy. and then you had the kind of very similar thing going on in New York, possibly even more out there, more avant-garde, which was sort of Andy Warhol's sort of setup, and that was an amazing scene with art, if you're into art and so forth. And Velvet Underground were a band, I think they were managed by Andy Warhol, and Andy Warhol had a model who couldn't sing very well apparently, and she was the singer of the Velvet Underground. And then what happened was the Velvet Underground found out that she was earning more money than them. They did a few gigs, maybe 10 gigs, and on the 10th gig they found out that she was earning more money than the rest of the band. Her tape was bigger, and so then they split with her, and they went their own ways. But actually, another interesting story about Lou Reed. He was influenced by some guitar player. I don't know who he was, his name, but he was a Nashville guy, and he tuned his guitar to the same note. So every single string was the same note. And I think Lou Reed's first, because he was a songwriter for a small sort of label in New York, and so his first song that he wrote on guitar was Lou Reed tuned his guitar into all the same note. I think it was an E. So he had like 6 E's and played the guitar like that, which is pretty mad actually. It's a pretty, I like using different tunings myself, but that's a tuning I've never sort of used. It'd be quite interesting to do that, just have 6 E's, tune every, who knows, maybe someone out there has created a whole cool book for that. But yeah, so anything else interesting about Lou Reed that I can think of, it will come to me. Mid-60s, Lower East Side, Lou Reed was our hero. Yeah, Johnny. I'm jealous of anybody that grew up in New York in the 60s, because I think around 66, 67 with the whole Andy Warhol scene, it's incredible artwork and music. The kind of, the whole arts collided together in a really sort of, with youth culture obviously at that time. But it was really intellectual, it was really out there, it was kind of, it was everything, it was really cool, I love that sort of. I read a lot of books about that time and that era, and I think it's fantastic. I remember, I think Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones and Brian Jones, I think they went out there to hang out with Andy Warhol, in his factory. And of course he was making, I think that's when he started making the films, where he was just like obsessed with filming sort of these weird, bizarre films where nothing really much happened, So that wasn't too successful in the end. Hey, this is my brother Joe. He's here. Joe Geezer is my twin brother. He's a great bass player. He's joined us, so hello Joe. Joe and myself are actually in the middle of releasing something really cool on the internet. We're going to tell you all about that. We're not going to tell you about that now, but my brother Joe is a bit of a genius. He's actually he's an amazing bass player, but also he can code in lots of different computer languages, and together we are twins. We're identical twins. We're doing a business together, which is going to be really cool to do with music, and we're going to tell you all about that pretty soon. And hopefully that's going to be something of interest to everyone, but we'll let you know about that soon. So my brother Joe, in actual fact, Joe's going to be on. He's going to be on the channel pretty soon, because we're missing bass. We love the bass guitar. We love bass guitarists, and we need the bass connoisseur to come on the show and talk about bass. So where were we? Yeah, we're into kind of like the anti-guitar hero, and we're talking about Lou Reed at the moment. So yeah, Lou Reed basically had the same guitar rig as Eric Clapton in the late 80s, early 90s. He had kind of the Soldano, the Pete Cornish setup. He also used Tone King amps as well. And yeah, he could solo. Lou Reed was a guitar soloist. He just did his own thing. And like I said, in the Velvet Underground, their thing was no blues licks, But obviously, Lou Reed kind of loved the blues, and was very knowledgeable about the blues, And his two favourite guitar players were James Burton and guess this one? Or of course, the amazing Steve Cropper. So, James Burton and Steve Cropper are kind of like two crazy, amazing guitar players. If you don't know, if young guitar players come up to me and say Joe Bonamassa, John Mayer, I say James Burton and Steve Cropper. That's what I say back to them. Because how can you play guitar and not be aware of those two guys, man? That's just crazy. Oh, by the way, this cup, I just want to say, there's a great good friend of mine. He's known as Elvis on YouTube, and Elvis actually gave me this cup. It's a beautiful cup, and Elvis, I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, his real name, but Elvis is actually from Egypt. This is an Elvis is a friend. His name is Elvis on YouTube, and he's actually from Egypt, and he bought this beautiful cup. It's an Egyptian cup, so thank you very much. And for the coffee chats, thank you very much, Elvis, for this beautiful cup. I don't know how I can repay you, but there must be a way. So thank you. That's marvelous. So yeah, Eric says Steve Cropper. Yeah, Steve Cropper is what a player. Just he really that kind of people are playing R&B licks now. Modern R&B. So. They don't realise that the inception, the beginning of R&B guitar, before Curtis Mayfield, was Steve Cropper. And the reason we have these, all that is because of a country and western guitar player. Steve Cropper was a country dude. The same as James Burton, and so that's why we have these. These are country licks that were put into. R&B music. Let me just turn this delay off because it's not becoming. So yeah, this is like this is what gets me about some younger guitar players is they're not going back far enough to the greats such as James Burton and Steve Cropper. And really, I think you need to do that. When I was first learning guitar, I wanted to learn blues guitar, and I went back to the masters. So I didn't sort of learn, when I was first, I didn't learn this. I didn't learn that. I learned so I learned sort of the ragtime, and obviously it was better the second time around actually. I learned ragtime, and I learned and it's like you have to go back to the beginning, Go back to the beginning, and it's like when my twin brother, Joe, he's here. He's actually here. Just this, Joe's here online. My twin brother. He was a great artist, and he was the artist of the family. He was a failed artist, but he was the artist of the family. And he went right back to the great masters, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, all those masters, and then he kind of did his modern, Pollock and. The guy we were talking about, Andy Warhol, and all that sort of more to contemporary art. But I think you need to go back to the masters. I probably sound like an old fart saying this, but James Burton, what a player, and Steve Cropper. So Yeah. Anyway, so anti-guitar players, anti-guitar heroes. That's the kind of subject of today. Have you heard of Tommy Jones? He was a protege of Chet Atkins. No, I haven't, but I will check him out, because thank you very much for saying that. Right, so let's have a look. Is that a John Mayer signature strat? Right, John Mayer. You know what? I don't even want to. Let's rant. Let's have a rant. Okay, John Mayer. What can I say about John Mayer? He's a great player. I've never listened to his music much. I think there was an album where he had a trio with a great bass player called Pino Palladino. And so really, what I can say about John Mayer is the best thing about John Mayer is Pino Palladino. That's the best thing. So I probably would only listen to John Mayer because Pino Palladino was on it, and I'll be really listening to Pino. For me, John Mayer, I mean, he's a little bit cheesy. I'm much more into Lou Reed. For me, Lou Reed, I much prefer to listen to Lou Reed's guitar playing because for me it's more real. It's Lou Reed, he wrote a song, and it was a song. He probably, I don't know how he wrote, but I know he refined his lyrics. So he wrote and then he kind of came back to the song and then perfected the words. But you felt that he really meant to write that song. It was done with the right intentions, and not for any gains or monetary gains or whatever, And he was a great songwriter. Lou Reed would he didn't know much about harmony, but he'd just put any chords together and then sing over the top of those chords, or he'd sing a melody and then find chords that would fit it, or vice versa. And so the chords weren't in key, but it didn't matter because, that was his style that he kind of created, and he wasn't held down by music theory. So somebody like Lou Reed is, he's much more real to me than somebody like John Mayer. John Mayer, I know he started off as a kind of a young lad doing poppy acoustic songs, and then he, turned into this blues guitarist. For me, it just doesn't grab me. There's no art to it. But that's just me, I'm just, who am I? I'm Mr. Nobody, so you don't have to listen to my opinion, but that's, for me, that's the reason why I wouldn't listen to John Mayer, because it's not art, it doesn't grab me, in a way that Peter Green does or Lou Reed does. For obviously Lou Reed and Peter Green, different techniques, but for me it's the same conviction. They really, they're artists, they're crafting it. Okay, you may argue to me that John Mayer's the same, but I don't know, maybe I'm the wrong generation to understand it. That's just me. John Mayer's a good player, but he doesn't have the intensity of soul. Yeah, okay, Eric, you basically hit the nail on the head. You said it. Pino Palladino, he's I actually go to in England to get my modifications done on my guitars. In fact, this guitar is going to be refretted pretty soon. I go to a guitar store called the Bass Gallery, and that's where Pino Palladino always shops, and he always hangs around that shop when he's in London. So I kind of catch up on what he's up to, through that shop. Everyone got their own sound and playing style. Yeah, well, this is where I'm coming down to Lou Reed, because I think generally there seems to be a lot of guitar players that get all the spotlight, because in certain genres. And for me, it doesn't have to be that you're incredible speed or virtuosity or whatever, you can do this. For me, it's the art, it's the craft that's really important for me. And Lou Reed had that. If you listen to Lou Reed, the music, it's check out an album called New York. If you can take anything from what I'm saying today, listen to an album called New York by Lou Reed. It's amazing. It's some great guitar tones, some really nice, real chilled out guitar playing with a band. Really works, and the lyrics are just fantastic. Great words, and he tells a story. You can listen, and he'll take you on a journey with these words. It's fantastic. Didn't Piano Palladino play with Lou Reed? Yeah, quite possibly. Jerry Reed. Okay, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think probably. I mean, Pino Palladino's played with everybody. Pino he's. I need to have my brother on this show. My brother's a bass player. He needs to come on here and tell you all about Pino Palladino, because Joe's the man. He's really studied these bass players well. So yes. So yeah, I mean, it's all about. For me, it's all about players like Lou Reed. Guys that really. There's another guy. You're gonna laugh around. You're gonna fall around laughing when I mention this guy. But I'd prefer to listen to Jonathan Richmond than John Mayer. Okay, and that's nothing against John Mayer. It's just that Jonathan Richmond's music it's more interesting to me than John Mayer's music. And like I said, it's not put down. It's just my personal taste. Anybody who, there's two types of people. There's people that have heard Jonathan Richmond's music and gets it, and there's people that don't get it. And he's kind of like he's one of these guys that for years nobody knew if he was being serious or not, and probably still don't. But he did an album. There's a song, if you type into YouTube a song, I think it's it might even be Sleepwalk. Yeah, maybe Sleepwalk by Jonathan Richmond, and it's just a guitar instrumental. It's beautiful. So Jonathan Richmond can play. He could play really beautifully, and he played sort of a big sort of jazz guitar with a Bigsby. I think this was a Stratocaster actually. Yeah, it was a Stratocaster. So it was. I think it was. Oh. No. It was that song, the. He does a version of that. Jonathan Richmond, check him out. It's very, very good. Maurice Debert says, Lou Reed, playing his songs are not that hard, but singing and playing is hard. He has a phrasing that goes against his playing. Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, Maurice. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Lou Reed had, he had a certain phrasing, and it was almost like a rap. It was a spoken word, but obviously singing. It was his own thing, and bear in mind he was before Leonard Cohen. So Leonard Cohen is famous as the kind of the spoken sort of word, almost speaking with a very high intellect, painting a picture with words. But Lou Reed was actually before Leonard Cohen. He was around. He was recording before Leonard Cohen. And a lot of people think that it's the other way around. A lot of people think that maybe Leonard Cohen was first and Lou Reed was influenced by him. But, who knows who was influenced by who. But, who knows. Hey man, Eric Stefan has just hit the nail on the head again. Yeah, what can I say? There's some great players, I'll put it down to this. I did a video on George Harrison and who his favourite guitar player was. And his favourite guitar player was Gary Moore. And Gary Moore, I'll explain your answer with this kind of story. Gary Moore came up through the ranks. And his favourite player was Rory Gallagher. And also Brian May's favourite guitar player was Rory Gallagher. So there was a kind of legacy there. There was kind of like, if you came from Ireland, if you came from Ireland around the 60s, if you were a young lad in the mid 60s or late 60s, then your hero was going to be Rory Gallagher. He was your go-to player. So, and then you discover the blues through Rory Gallagher, and some people love Rory Gallagher, some people don't, but he was an amazing player in my opinion. And so that was your route. So, Gary Moore is a direct link from really Rory Gallagher. That's who he was influenced by, in my opinion. And then obviously he listened to loads of blues guys, in London in the 60s, you had Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton was influenced by John Mayall playing him records of blues. Eric Clapton spent, I think, 6 months in John Mayall's house, and John Mayall gave him access to his record collection. and Eric Clapton really focused on Freddie King, Freddie King's guitar playing with the Les Paul, and that really shaped Eric's playing. So then Eric kind of was the go-to guy, and even Peter Green listened to Eric Clapton, and Eric Clapton was the man in London, So obviously Peter Green also influenced Gary Moore. Gary Moore was a huge Peter Green fan. Yeah, taste, and Brian May used to go and see Taste. So I think what I'm trying to say about Stevie Ray Vaughan is it's a real shame with Stevie Ray Vaughan that Stevie Ray Vaughan has kind of become the go-to guy wherever you live in the world. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he was just the guy in Texas. And if you come from Texas, or in that, if you come from America, fair enough, in that part of the region. But I think we've kind of lost the uniqueness of like a player in the local scene, like Rory in Ireland or Eric Clapton in London, and then those players were influenced by those players from their area. We've kind of lost that a little bit, I think, with everybody wanting to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and people are tired. There's a lot of kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan wannabes around, and there's some really good ones as well. But I don't think people are buying it, because I think you've got to be a bit more than just a Stevie Ray Vaughan clone. And we all love Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan was amazing, and it's kind of like the Stevie Ray Vaughan fanatics actually turned me off Stevie Ray Vaughan, because he himself was an amazing guitar player, really, one of my favourites. But because you get so many people trying to be him, it kind of like turns me off, and that's why I'm kind of more into, I've always been into people like Lou Reed. I've always been into the the guitar hero that wasn't so flamboyant and so obvious, and I think you need to have a little bit of that, I mean, even Eric Clapton went through a phase where he was into Carl Perkins, and he was just strumming. He was in is it Bonnie and Delaney? He was a lot of it was he went through a reggae phase. So he himself didn't want to be the soloing god that he was. So I think it's good to have a varied influences. Rory's favourite, Jimmy's favourite player too. Yeah, yes. Good afternoon, Arvin. Okay, let's read some comments. Yeah, so sorry, Eric, I went off on a tangent, but that's a rant. I did say at the beginning I was going to rant a little bit, so there you go. I mean, what can I say? One player I do like, you're going to be shocked at this, but I actually do like Joe Bonamassa. It might shock you, but I think Joe Bonamassa is actually a cool guy. The reason I think he's a cool guy, I don't know. He just seems he seems a nice chap to ever talk to. If he was in the room, I don't know. I've never met him, but he seems like a kind of a cool guy. And he's copied Eric Johnson. He's copied this guy, but he's copied Gary Moore. His whole business plan is Gary Moore, but he's got his own vibe. He's a great player. He's a great player. He's got his own sound. I don't think he's a good songwriter, and I don't mean that in a horrible way. But I do like him. I like his playing. I could listen to Joe Bonamassa. I never have done, but I could, But John Mayer, I don't think I could. It's not really my thing. Yeah, B.B. King. That's a source. That's the actual source of the sound. And that's what young players need to do. They need to be a B.B. King clone, not a Stevie Ray Vaughan clone. They need to be a B.B. King clone. That's basically it. Technique and impression over soul. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Richard Lima says Rory's favourite. Yeah, I've read that. Yeah. Buddy Guy. Yeah, I mean, Buddy Guy. What a player. He kind of had. It was like, without, for me, he had the African sound. It was kind of, he was channeling Africa through. His blues guitar playing sounded African to me. I actually went to Africa. I go to Africa a lot, and so I know the African vibe. And Buddy Guy he's got Africa in his playing. I can't really explain it any other way really. Bonamassa is great, super player. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Bonamassa, he's a nice guy, and I like him. I just get a good vibe off him. Yeah. Maurice says SRV, Jimmy, Duane played from the soul. Yeah, absolutely. Steve Ray Vaughan, 100%. It was all soul. Jimmy, he channeled something from another dimension. He, you guys must have heard of DMT. Um, and Jimmy, he didn't take DMT, but he was certainly, he was out there. He was in another dimension, and he managed to get that through the music. I don't know how he did it, but yeah, well, probably acid. But Duane Allman, yeah, he lived and breathed music, and he was there in the Muscle Shoals sessions. I think he played with Aretha Franklin, and did he play with Sam Cooke? I can't remember. Or I know he played with the greats. He was there in playing on all those great Muscle Shoals songs. So Duane Allman, what can you say? Dwight says, good to learn from the great players, but still develop your own style. Hey man, Dwight, that's basically what it's at. That's where it's at. It's really just getting your own sound together, and this is where it comes back to the Steve Ray Vaughan clones. I'm one myself, but I kind of have a Steve Ray Vaughan sort of day where I'll just be into him, but then the next day it will be Jimi Hendrix, and then when you come to perform or play a jam with your friends, and then it's you. It's got to be you. Maurice has said it. Okay, the anti-guitar hero, the king of the anti-guitar heroes is Eddie Hazel, who, if there's one song you need to listen to, okay, so all these young punks that are into John Mayer, I want to get them, I want to tie them up and put some headphones on them and just put Maggot Head on repeat for like 12 hours. And I think that would probably get rid of their John Mayer obsession. I think that would sort them out. Yeah, definitely. Eddie Hazel, man, what a genius. Jay Trim says, what I like about Joe Bonamassa is, as good as he is, he's humble, down to earth, and doesn't have a fat head. Hey, you know what? I get the same vibe. Bonamassa is. I get the same vibe from him. I mean, like I said, I've never met the guy, but he seems fun. He seems cool, and he's a great player. He can really play. That guy can really play. And like I said before, he's got a kind of Eric Johnson. He's got a couple of Eric Johnson licks. The famous that kind of thing happening. There's no shame in that, because it's actually a very difficult lick to play. I can't play it properly. But he's made it his own. He's got his own thing. He has got his own sound. He doesn't sound like Gary Moore. Gary Moore was much more intense. I'd say he hit the guitar harder. He was. Joe Bonamassa is a little bit more laid back, but he's a great player. So where are we now? Jimmy is a force of nature. Yeah, Jimmy was just. Amazing. Who would come up with? Who would how would you come up with that? It's just that's why Hendrix is a genius. Because he's and lovely all those kind of nice little Curtis Mayfield style. He played in the Curtis Knights. Was it Curtis Knight and the whatever? So he was well versed in all the R&B sort of things. Actually, Jimi Hendrix was, I think he got a lot of stuff off Johnny Guitar Watson. Johnny Guitar Watson is another genius, incredible. Check out. I love Johnny Guitar Watson. What a player he was. Yeah, that's it. Duane Allman and Wilson Pickett. Yeah, Hey Jude. I have heard that, Morris. So thank you. Yeah, that was when I was saying Sam Cooke. I actually meant Wilson Pickett. Yeah. So Mikey Newman, hi Mikey. He says Paul Kossoff was a huge influence on me. Great tones. Hey man, Mikey, that's what it's all about. Is picking somebody a little bit left field who not everyone else is copying, and making that your man, your woman. And Paul Kossoff, just beautiful, obviously, but it had that. I'm going to fall off the fretboard, but he had this that crazy vibrato, I haven't really sort of studied it, but we could talk all night about his vibrato. It was, I know Eric Clapton was a fan of Paul Kossoff's vibrato and actually asked him how he did it. Yeah, fantastic. And what Paul Kossoff was great, what I loved about him was it was a Marshall stack and the Les Paul, and just full on. And when you have that Marshall full on, instead of being, all the highs, everything sort of mellows out and compresses, and you just get this beautiful mid-range compression from that Les Paul and the Marshall. There's a great live TV show with a young Kossoff, playing with Free, and that guitar tone, it's just unbeatable. It was the pinnacle of guitar sounds, Marshall and that Les Paul, amazing. Extender Mag Emptier says, "What's good, everyone? Today I was walking in the hood and some black slave robbed me. His homie also shot me with his 38 caliber and now I'm dead." Is that a Lou Reed lyric? Because if it's not, it should be, and you're a poet. Richard says, "The best way to develop your own style is to listen to a lot of non-guitar based music." You know what, Ricardo? You are a genius, because that's basically, what would take me 1 hour to explain, you've said it in there in 10 words. I mean, I listened to a guy called Eric Dolphy. Eric Dolphy is obviously a saxophonist, but he also played bass clarinet, if I can remember rightly. And Eric Dolphy was in some amazing albums, and check him out. Very avant-garde. Out to Lunch was a very good avant-garde album which everybody should own. And I love the avant-garde era of jazz and art. And if you listen to that, and then you can kind of bring some of that into your music somehow. There's one, the 12, I think it's a 12 tone, Rick Beato. I don't know if Rick Beato explains this, but anyway, you get 12 notes, and the idea with that some avant-garde music is you can work out phrases so that you don't. I worked out a few shapes actually, and you've got to play the 12 notes without repeating one of the notes, and then you go and move on to the next shape. But you have to work out a few patterns in order to do this. So maybe I can do a lesson on it and show you some sort of inversions and stuff. But so you get to do that. It's really, really nice music. Even just to playing pentatonic. It's a very simple trick, and John Scofield does that. And it just a bit of an avant-garde sort of thing to your music. Right. Where are we? Maggot Brain Live. Yes, Maggot Brain Live 971 is incredible. It is, Eric. Johnny says, "Did you tell us about India yet?" No, I'm going to tell you right now. Esqualak Chuck. Wow, look at him go. Maurice says, "I have a pet theory about Jimmy, that he had synesthesia. Is that something to do with the brain where you can kind of project astral projection?" We can talk about that. I'm really into that. Ricardo says, "Bernie Marsden is another giant. His Peter Green tribute album is insanely good." You know what? I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, Bernie Marsden does a beautiful version of. Shall I tell you about my life? Say I'm a man of the world. Yeah, he does a great version of Man of the World actually. So listen, I know that because I've got a friend Paul up north who sent me that track and said, check this out. And it was Bernie Marsden doing Man of the World, and it was very, very good. So well done, Bernie. Real Mother for You, Johnny Guitar Watson, Buddy Guy does a great cover. Yes, well, Johnny Guitar Watson is a massive influence for me. Yeah, I love all his 50s when he had Etta James as his backing singer, right through to his whole funk kind of, he had a beautiful song. I actually did a cover. Something like that, I can't remember it, but that was a really, really nice song. Roy Clark, yeah, Roy Clark was a monster. He was he could you know, he was he was on another level. Glenn Campbell, yes, and Jerry Reed. Yeah, Morris, you know the guys. You know the guys. J Trem says synesthesia, hearing sound as color. Yeah, okay, yeah. Van Gogh has said to have it also. Yeah, bear in mind, guys, I'm from Essex, and people from Essex, we're not the most cleverest people on the planet. That's the kind of reputation we have. Essex people. Yeah, so there's some other funny things about Essex, but I've talked about that on previous live coffee chats. Talking of which, I shall have a sip. Yeah, so Ricardo said the best way to develop your own style is to listen to a lot of non-guitar based music. I'm going to come back to that quote because that's so important. Listen to a sax player. I like cheesy, smooth jazz music. It's a kind of a weird thing, so it kind of doesn't really go together with my New York avant-garde, Lou Reed, Velvet Underground period. But I like people like Grover Washington Jr., who did the Just the Two of Us with Bill Withers, amazing sax player. And Grover Washington, he's kind of like the kind of Kenny G. I mean, he's not as commercial as Kenny G, but he's a bit of a commercial sort of player in that respect. But I love his phrasing, and you can listen to somebody like him and really take some of those phrases onto guitar. And a lot of sax players, guitar and sax, I think can be quite a similar instrument. Obviously, the Brecker Brothers is really good. I think it's Bob Burke played. There's a really good song by Mike Stern called Chromosome, which goes over. Something like that. And I think Bob Berg, who actually unfortunately died not long ago, he was a sax player, great sax player, and I love that kind of staccato, of Michael Brecker and those sort of players, and obviously, the older players, the Bird, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, all those guys you've got to be hip to, all those guys. Pee Wee Ellis, who I got to play with for a couple of years, great player, Alvin says, well, Essex or not, you're still smarter than I am. Oh, I don't know about that. I do not know about that. I'm not that clever. Right, Morris says, I think I saw a documentary where B.B. King talked about his vibrato and that he was emulating a sax or trumpet. Well, yeah, there you go. I think he was also, another thing, I read an interview about B.B. King, and he said he was emulating the slide, Because the thing about slide is when there's different types of players, again with slide, people try to copy Duane Allman or maybe Raikuda, but a lot of slide players want to be Duane Allman, which is a shame because if you listen to someone like El Hooker or Tampa Red or these older Delta players, they have quite a sort of a weird sort of, it's almost like a sitar, and some really nice sort of different styles. It's a shame when kind of one style becomes the style you have to learn, you know. But anyway, the slide guitar sort of, you generally put the vibrato afterwards. So with a, if you use the same thing with your fingers, and Gary Moore actually used to have it. Gary Moore used to say that when he used to vibrato note, he wanted to emulate like an opera singer, where you get the note first, and then to obviously sustain that note, you bring in the vibrato, and then heavier as the note dies out, so you can kind of keep that note going. Whereas the slide is kind of it's a kind of similar thing. You tend to put the vibrato on afterwards. So I think that's where B.B. King maybe also got it from, was from slide guitar. Your opinions on Indian song structure and rhythms. We're going to talk about that in 10 seconds. Let me just answer some of these. Sax, piano and vocals are to me the best sources of inspiration, yes. The piano guitar pairing in blues is stellar, yes. Champion Jack Dupree did this very well, I agree. Ricardo, you're very knowledgeable. Eric says, do you think that it's strange that both Clapton and Peter Green ended 1970 going into a dark abyss of either addiction or madness? Both were playing for me at the very top of emotional intensity. Eric, again, another very bold statement, but very true. I think there was a kind of a time period for that kind of hippie, psychedelic movement, and it did actually end in the 70s, early 70s, and it became a bit aggressive and dark because of heroin. So I think it started in good faith, and in kind of technicolor with the LSD and the flower power and all that, love and whatever, and then it kind of got into the more darker period with as heroin started creeping in, and it became more edgy and more dark. And I think that was really what I mean, I know Peter Green didn't take heroin, but obviously maybe he was disposed to some, he had some probably issues. Obviously my mum basically was a nurse in that time, and still is. She was a young nurse, student nurse then, and more in the early 70s, and she said she remembered people in the 80s in hospital, still in hospital from taking LSD in the 60s, because your brain, it's got a balance, of chemicals, and LSD changes that balance, and that's what gives you the kind of the psychedelic experience. And I guess some people's brains can't go back to normal; they just stay with that chemical imbalance. I'm not a doctor here, so this is just from what my mum's saying. I think Peter Green was probably one of those guys that he took an LSD trip and his brain never went back to normal, because his brain just couldn't balance those chemicals, or whatever, get his neurons working again, Whereas other people, you can take 1,000 LSD trips and they're not affected. So I think some people, it's just pot luck whether you're able to, you're tolerant of it or not, Peter Green burnt out on the German LSD. Yeah. You know what, I was actually thinking of doing a whole show, like a 10-minute little documentary on the German incident. I think there might even be a film about that on YouTube anyway. But there's a well-known incident about, in Germany, there was a mansion, and apparently Peter Green and Danny Kerwin were kidnapped, or not kidnapped, but they were force-fed and spiked, So that was kind of the end of them. Okay, yeah, so basically, Peter was spiked with a heavy dose to make him more... Yeah, because there were these aristocrats, German aristocrats, and they wanted to, keep... They had some kind of a commune or something, and they wanted to keep Peter Green involved in it. And there was a lot of that in the late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot of sort of religious cults. Obviously, the whole was it Quentin Tarantino's just made a film about it, pretty good film. But there was a lot of cults around that time, which were, I think, people were interested in the the Eastern arts and yoga and spiritualism and meditation, and people were forming cults and movements, and yeah, and it was that time, it was drugs, and it was. I wish I would have been. I wasn't born then, I was born later in the 70s, and I wish I would have been born then. It would have been amazing to experience that. Well, I mean, there you go. Let's talk about India. Yeah, I was in India, a place called Bangalore, and it's kind of like the Silicon Valley of India, so it's quite built up, and so in one way it's kind of good if you're a Westerner going to India for the first time. You've got all your mod cons, nice hotel. On the downside of that is that you have to kind of seek out the music. But I was very fortunate because I was sent there by Trinity College London as I worked for them, and so I got to meet lots of musicians, and I actually did a couple of concerts there myself. So I was very lucky. There was actually a YouTube video of me doing a concert in India, I think 2 videos before this, and I got to sit with some musicians. So what I'm going to do, because they kind of I filmed some of what they told me, what they were teaching me, so it's probably a little bit hard for me to explain it coherently now, but I will do a kind of a lesson on the music of India and how to play some stuff on the guitar, some of the scales they were playing. But I can tell you now, like one of the scales they'd use in a certain raga, which is a 5th mode of the harmonic minor scale. If you, for example, so if you're playing D harmonic minor, probably know that shape. Let's learn it together. D, E, F, G. Sorry, my brain's I've been up since 4 a.m. But G, A, B flat, D flat. D sharp, E. Okay. C sharp, D. If you go to the 5th mode, starting on A, so it's just basically D harmonic minor starting on an A note. That was a scale that they tend to use quite a bit in certain ragas, and that's also called the Spanish Gypsy scale because it's used in. And it's also, funnily enough, that scale is used in Arabic music. That kind of. It's used quite a lot in Spanish and Arabic, and also ragas, and the sort of you can kind of do the it's all that sort of stuff. I can go into this stuff in a proper lesson, but that's one of the scales I used. So it's good to learn it. If you want to learn that scale. Learn it over the neck, and learn the harmonic minor scale over the neck. Harmonic minor scale. Okay, I'll tell you. 3 scales you want to learn over the neck. The major scale, the harmonic minor scale, and the melodic minor scale. If you learn those 3 scales, just learn it in one key, each scale. Then you're going to know everything. Trust me. In jazz, world music. It all comes down to those 3 scales. If you've got those 3 scales under your fingers, I should do some lessons if you like. If you want me to do some lessons how to learn those scales, I can certainly do that. But that's always stood me in good stead when I've travelled around the world, knowing those three scales. Yeah, sitar. Yeah, there's two types of music in India. There's Hindustani, which is the north of India, and the south of India. I mean, this is simplifying it a lot, but Hindustani is with sitar and the tabla. That's kind of Hindustani music, and then I think it's a sarod. There's a strange name which I can find out because I saw these instruments being played amazingly well. And then there's Karnatica. I think it's called Karnatica music is in the south, and so there's two different styles of music, Karnatica and Hindustani, and they have their own ragas. They have their own scales unique to those musical styles. But like I said, I'll probably do a proper lesson where I kind of go back over some video lessons that I took out there, and I'll put it all together into a 10-minute or 15-minute video, and I can teach you everything I learned. Some amazing stuff. Black Country Blues says hi to Alvin. Oh, you know each other. Great, that's fantastic. Mark FX says greetings to you too. And so Maurice and Jewish music, klezmer. Jewish music has a lot to do with jazz. It was a big influence. Klezmer was a big influence on jazz music. So, Jewish music goes way back, back thousands of years, obviously. So it's all sort of you could say Arabic music, Jewish music, and then it went to India. Maybe it started in India, who knows? Maybe it started in Africa, then went to India, and then went to the Holy Lands, and then, Babylon, whatever, and then we got it, But that's another subject for another day. Black Country Blues says, hey, Dwight Bailey, greetings and happy holiday. What a nice guy, what a nice greeting, so thank you to you guys. So we're here talking about Lou Reed and the anti-guitar hero. If you can think of any other anti-guitar heroes, for me it's Lou Reed, it's Jonathan Richmond, and he's one of my favourite anti-guitar heroes. It's people that really are kind of use the guitar in a different way, that sort of are people that I like to listen to. And there's some who's the guy that plays for it's an great American guy, sort of he's the main guy that uses effects in a weird way. There's like here in England we have Radiohead and Johnny Greenwood, and you've got a similar guy in America, but his name, and he's a bit of a jazz guitarist as well. He used to hang out with a lot of the old jazzers, but I can't remember his name. It will come to me. But there's a guy in America who plays for not Mark Ribbett, not Robbie Rodson. Yeah, great player. But anyway, so people that use effects, in a weird way, those kind of players, like Andy Summers of the Police was, stuff when he did. That sort of classical guitar techniques, and I heard Andy Summers only got to grade 5 or grade 6 in classical guitar, but Dominic Miller, who wrote Dominic Miller, who Sting later employed, he actually got to grade 8. But Andy Summers only got to grade 5. He went to America. I think he went to Berkeley in America, and he only got to grade 5. But hey, who wrote... we love Dominic Miller. He's a great player. We love him on this show. Yes, I'm a Limey. No holidays. Yeah, Black Country Blues. Yeah, Black Country is actually Birmingham. When we say the Black Country in England, we mean the Birmingham those. Actually, where Robert Plant, the guy. Robert Plant is from, he's from that place, that area, and he of course supports Wolverhampton Wanderers. So Brummies, yes, Maurice, that's right, yeah, yes. So coming back to Arvin said Mark Ribbett. Mark Ribbett is I'm a huge fan of his. Actually, just preparing for a new album release in a couple of months, and I've actually included a Mark Ribbett song, well, an arrangement by him. So so Eric says, do you feel Robert Johnson gets too much credit because of Clapton's backing? I love RJ but prefer Son House, Blind Willie Johnson, Booker White, Skip James, Blind Lemon Jefferson, and B.B. King agrees. Yes, Blind Lemon Jefferson is, he really is, Blind Lemon Jefferson was a Texan blues guitar player, and he really was the kind of muddy waters of his time. He was, if you don't know him, you don't know his story, then you better do some reading, better do some research, because he really was one of the guys that started it, Of course, Son House, amazing player, Son House, and Skip James. Let's play a Skip James song. There's a really good version by a friend of mine actually called Chris Thomas King, and Chris Thomas King actually released my first ever album many years ago. And check out Chris Thomas King. He was in a film called Oh Brother Where Art Thou, and he was the guy playing this actual song in the movie. But it was written by Skip James, and it's a beautiful song. Only thing is, Strats go really out of tune. So, but that's he had this great sound, with this minor sort of blues sound. We're going to finish up in a few minutes, but I'm going to just do the Skip James thing. So it's a D minor tuning. What's great about this tuning is that the E, B, and G strings, the first, second, third strings, even though you've tuned them down a whole step, you can kind of play that low D. And you can try and, the kind of aim is to try and keep that 4 on the floor sort of quadrants. Tuning, yeah, check it out. And Skip James was a master of the D minor tuning. Where are we? Yeah, D. Yeah, so D. That's a D, and then A, D, F, A, D. So that's D minor tuning. If you then put the F up to an F sharp, you've got D major. But then the problem is you're really looking. You can only use the B and the E as your normal sort of shapes. Then everything else changes. So kind of everything doubles really with D major. Kind of have to learn that all over again, which I did many years ago. Sort of just learn all the shapes again, really. You know. Hello from Beirut. Hello. Peter Green is the greatest ever. Yes, what a player, and great to hear from you from Beirut, which is in Lebanon, of course. Am I right in saying? Yes. Great to have a Lebanese person join us. Black Country Blue says, the guitar show, you have a nice time. Oh, that's too kind. Thank you very much. Alan Wilson of Canned Heat was much inspired by, yes, especially his singing. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Eric, because my mother, she saw Canned Heat in the 60s, and she absolutely loved Alan Wilson. On the Road Again, he had the falsetto voice. Hopefully we're speaking about the same guy. Yeah, he was a great player and great singer. You know, had that really great falsetto vocal, and very, very nice. Yes. Right, so what we can do now, we're going to end this show soon, but before we do, we're going to talk about India again, and we're going to talk about Davy Graham. Who was Davy Graham? Okay, well, let's just get into a tuning. This tuning is called Dad Gad. So let's go D-A-D. And we're going to go up to G. I'm actually going to do a video very soon on Dad Gad and explain the whole thing. But I just want to say that David Graham actually came up with this tuning because he went to Morocco. And he heard the oud players there. And also he was really interested in sitar. And what he got was this tuning, Dad Gad. You can kind of do the sitar thing. And of course, you'll probably know Dad Gad from this song. Whoop, if I can get this right. Okay, so Jimmy Page didn't actually come up with that. It was David Graham. And then Burt Yankst kind of got it from David Graham. So David Graham was the first guy to kind of come with that tuning and come with some amazing arrangements. He did an arrangement of She Moved Through the Fair, which is a really beautiful song. It's a my young love said to me, son, and my father wants like you for your special care. When in the waves, can't remember the word, but move through the way. And you can do a little slide, sort of. And then sort of tuning you can get into if you want to get into the Indian sound. There's loads of stuff there. Yeah, Nick Drake, the band Pentagonal. Yeah. So David Graham, yeah, it's he's kind of like one of my heroes, and quite possibly an anti-guitar hero, because he was a guitar hero in the 60s. Everybody knew Angie, the famous sort of instrumental, but he wasn't, he's not like kind of Slash. He's not. He ended up playing in a Chinese restaurant in Soho in London. That's how he, ended his career basically. So it's a shame that he wasn't more widely known, So Maurice says Roy Harper, David Graham, Mark Fry, Donovan, yes, great players. Eric, but Yanks, Yank used to play with David Graham, as I said. Stomp Box, Chris says a British guitarist with affinities towards African, Moroccan music, Indian music is bound to mention David Graham at some point. God bless you, Stompbox, Chris. Maurice says Nick Drake and a band Pentagonal, yes, of course. And the bass player of that band was a really important player, but I can't remember his name, double bassist, but he's gone. Django Reinhardt was David Graham's hero. Yeah, I can quite believe that. And also Eric, Mark Ribbett, his number one guy is Django Reinhardt. Jay Trem says, I'm trying to finish making Thanksgiving dinner and watch Ramon at the same time. Annoying. Well, thank you. God bless you, Jay Trem. I'm pleased that I'm up there with the dinner. We're going to end it soon. When someone strums a guitar, I lose control of my vowels. Love that. Go on, strum. Well, okay, we're going to finish. We're going to finish on something. I'm going to finish on something on mine. I'm going to finish on my own song, which I wrote in Dagad, This is called Marrakesh Sunset, I think. But I wanted to kind of invoke. It was actually based on the Led Zeppelin song, because John Bonham's like hitting a suitcase or something, and Jimmy Page is doing this crazy thing, and I thought I wanted to kind of replicate that. Obviously David Graham was a guy that Jimmy Page was copying, but I kind of wanted to do something influenced by Led Zeppelin. But anyway, I came up with this. It's called Marrakesh Sunsets. If I can remember how to play it. But there's a bit I've forgotten actually. Oh yes, yeah. Something like that. Anyway, I'd have to practice it again, but that was kind of basically the sort of sounds you can get out of Dagad, and it is kind of that. It's a very it's a very atmospheric sort of sound. You can also play slide guitar with it pretty well as well, And if you've got those three. So it's good for slide, but it's a very atmospheric. Talking of which, I just remembered a guy. I actually replaced him. There was a guy called John Lucas. He 12-string singer-songwriter from America, had a son who drowned. Help me out, guys. Singer-songwriter, 12-string, had a son. Great, both amazing musicians, singers. Not Nick Drake, is an English guy. Father, son, American. Son drowned in the river. Father was died of heroin overdose. 12-string player. Who are they? Jeff Buckley, yes, thank you. And Tim Buckley with the father, yeah. Thank you. Eric, you're young. Yeah, Joe, we should upgrade this to Beer Talk. Anyway, where were we? Tim Buckley, Jeff Buckley, yeah. So Jeff Buckley, Gary Lucas. I was playing with a lady from Pakistan, and she'd just done a whole album with Gary Lucas, and I replaced Gary Lucas and had to play Gary Lucas's parts, and they were basically, a lot of them was in Dagad, but so I think Gary Lucas played the guitar basically on all of Jeff Buckley's album. So, and I was actually shocked because I thought Jeff Buckley played all those amazing guitar parts, and it wasn't. It was Gary Lucas. Gary Lucas was, I think, on Grace or whatever. I think Jeff Buckley learned some of those parts afterwards, but check it out. I think you'll find that Gary Lucas basically was a guitarist, main guitarist on the Grace album, and that was quite surprising actually, because I thought Jeff Buckley had played all those parts. But check out, okay, my brother Joseph is online. Joe Geezer. He's my identical twin brother. He's going to be on the guitar show pretty soon. We're going to be on it together. And but anyway, guys, I want to say thanks a million. Tim Hardin, I have heard of Tim Hardin. He's an English folk guitar player, if I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. Meth666 says, man, I'd love to have thumbs and rock the guitar like you do. I'm sure you do, and you got a cool name. Anyway, Black Country Blues says, I'm a natural relic. Hey, we're all relics of a bygone era. If we play guitar, we're playing, this guitar it's an old instrument. Nowadays people, they're using mobile phones to make music. It's all about the mobile phone, but we're using this thing here, for better or worse. We're using this thing. It's what we do. We love it. We wouldn't have it any other way. It's all about this. So yeah, fantastic, guys. I want to say thanks a lot for coming and chilling out. And we're going to do some more ranting and raving, and we're going to tear a new whatever in the next subject. We're going to do this in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to really put everyone to rights. If you've got any subjects, let me know. Yeah, it's been great talking about Lou Reed and the anti-guitar heroes, and all that sort of stuff. So and it's good to be back from India. We're going to do a lesson on Indian music. I'm going to break down everything I learnt in India, and this is not just about the curries that I ate. This is about the music, how to play this sort of style of music that I learnt. And I'm going to say to you all good night and happy Thanksgiving to all of my American friends. And we're here in London. It's very cold, it's very dark, it's very damp, but you guys make it a better place, because it's a great atmosphere with you guys. And we're going to be back soon. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about some crazy stuff, some amazing guitar players, and it's really cool, and I hope to meet you all someday. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'm going to say good night. God bless, sleep tight, don't have nightmares, and God bless. Whatever religion you may be, God bless you. And if you're an atheist, doesn't matter. We're all here. We're all doing it. And yeah, great. And I'm gonna read some of the last quotes here. Stompbox says, "I'm glad I got to participate live on this chat. I appreciate the guitar talk on your channel. Real chat with someone who loves guitar. No commercial here." Yeah, we don't do commercials. This is no. I'm gonna upload a video of some pedals that company sent me. I use these pedals live. I try to keep this channel real. We don't bullshit on this channel. We keep it real, and that's the whole point about it. Meth666 says, "I stink, but totally worth it. Love you, man." I love you too, Meth666. I hope you're not Satan. That's all I can say. But I love you, man. Black Country Blues says, cheers all. Thanks, Ramon. Yeah. God bless Black Country, and great to have you. So I'm gonna switch this mobile phone off, but thank you. Thanks a lot. Cheers.